Bitcoin's price, it tanked. And it wasn't alone. MicroStrategy and other treasury companies holding Bitcoin are down hard on the day too. But here's the question. Why? Some are pointing to just simple market jitters, others to macro moves. But we do have a proposed reason here, stated by Jack Mallers himself. And in a moment, we're going to play you exactly what he had to say. More importantly, we're going to break down what this drop actually means for you and what everyone should be doing right now. Let me break this down for my fellow Bitcoiners. In just 8 weeks, I've seen a serious shift. More strength, more energy, and fast muscle gains. The reason? FITSCRIPT. They ran 124 biomarkers, blood, hormones, inflammation, and built a fully custom plan, nutrition, training, supplements. No guesswork, no templates. This is functional medicine meets precision fitness for high-performing men who want sovereignty over their health. If you care about optimization the way you care about your money, test, don't guess. Don't trust, verify. Hit the link in the description or scan the QR code on the screen to check out FITSCRIPT and see what's possible. Hey, you. Yes, you watching the Bitcoin price movements and the latest exciting news. It's awesome to stay informed, but the real power of Bitcoin comes from taking control. Don't just watch, take action. Head over to btcsessions.ca/learn for free step-by-step tutorials that guide you through every major skill you need to know, plus full video playlists for deeper dives on any topic you like. And if you're ready for the ultimate fast track, scroll to the bottom and check out bitcoinmentor.io for premium one-on-one experience with my team of Bitcoin experts to ensure you get it right the first time. Don't wait. Secure your Bitcoin future today. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen. Let's chat about the news at hand. I hope, we get a mix of people. Obviously, there's the hardcore Bitcoiners that have been around here forever, and we love you guys. Thank you guys for being here. But we're also starting to get a whole host of new people coming in the door, especially with these live shows. And, the newcomers may not be as used to price fluctuations and kind of what's par for the course in Bitcoin land. And a lot of people are coming here actually from a stance of they actually came in through things like MicroStrategy and then are starting to look at Bitcoin specifically. And so for those people, welcome. We hope we can put your minds and hearts at ease here. But let's chat a little bit about what's been going on. So first, let's take a peek over at what Bitcoin is looking like right now. And I'll sneak us off to the side here. So we're down percentage-wise, not too crazy, shy of 4% on the day, 3.73% on the day, and on a 1 day. And we're sitting at 109, 370, 380, in and around that region as we are doing this live. We had a pretty sizable dump from, 111 down to 108.8 earlier today. If we zoom out on the week, it's been a tricky week. We were up feeling pretty good at 117 earlier, and we shaved off at times nearly 10K over the past 7 days. So that never feels very nice. But there's a good old saying, when in doubt, zoom out. So as you get to the monthly, really, we're kind of where we were in late August. So that's not so bad. On the year to date, we're up 17.25%. If you zoom out to a year, we're at up 73%, up $46,000 per coin. And when you zoom to the 5-year, it's a joke. It's 918%, up 98, almost $99,000. So again, when in doubt, zoom out. But let's again kind of take a look at more of the near term, what's happened here. If you're coming in from the MicroStrategy perspective, been a while, but MSTR did drop below the 300 mark today for a little bit. It went down to 292, which might have been a little jarring for some people, especially if you kind of got in on the hype train earlier in the year. We've seen it up quite a bit higher than this before. When it was what was that? That was back in July. We were seeing in the 400s. If we go back a year again, we did have that big spike back at the end of 2024, 473, and it got close to there in July, but has pretty much been downward since. If you're looking at some of the other Treasury companies here, just an example, Semler, on the day, it's down 4.5%. MSTR, by the way, on the day, down 7%. So that's a pretty big hit.
I gotta take a look at that. Can you show me that chart, Ben? I'm still looking at the BTC one.
Yeah. Sorry. I'll so there's strategy here. This is just on Google, but here's our if we take a look just on the 1 day, strategy down about 7%. If I go out to the 1 year, then we can kind of see those spikes. So late 2024, that's when it got up into the high 400s. It revisited the mid 400s in July, but it's been kind of a downward ride since then. And then again, if we're looking at Semler as another example, down 4.5% on the day. But if we zoom out 5 days, not bad, 6 months. But yeah, again, you've got that kind of not looking as nice as you zoom out more. So my general take on Treasury companies, I'm not as interested on that front.
Yeah.
I personally don't hold the Treasury companies when I can just hold Bitcoin. I know people have different preferences, but I self-custody Bitcoin. I think that's like prime real estate. That is the king. That is the best thing that you can possibly have. So that's kind of where I stand. But in general, let's kind of take a look at what is going on in the market insofar as Bitcoin. And so this is Joe Consorti. He tweeted just today that Bitcoin has had 2 of its 3 biggest liquidation events of 2025 in the last 4 days. $2.75 billion in long liquidation leverage has been wiped. So basically, people betting that the price will go up, and if they're wrong, then they must then go and sell Bitcoin. And so that has huge implications on the price when events like that happen. And so these people get wiped out. They have to sell other Bitcoin, and it tanks the price even further. So it's just not looking good on that front. In terms of, there's this CMC Crypto Fear and Greed Index, and it kind of measures market sentiment. And we're sitting in the fear side of things at a 41. Anything north of 50 goes into the greed range. So it's not like the market is super spooked, but still leaning that direction. While all this is happening, gold seemingly does not give a shit, hitting new all-time highs. And this can have some it can have some implications in and around how the world is perceiving not just macroeconomic events, but geopolitical events. And we'll get into some of that momentarily. But off the top of the show, I mentioned that Jack Mallers had gone on and chatted a little bit about what he thinks, and actually what the former CEO, I think, of BitMEX is thinking, Arthur Hayes. And so let's take a little listen to that, and we'll reflect on it afterwards.
So this tweet from Arthur Hayes: TGA refill almost done. Target is 850 billion. With this liquidity drain complete, up only can resume. Okay, let's understand what's going on here. So the TGA, that stands for the Treasury General's account. So what Arthur is saying is the Treasury General's account refill is almost done. Think of the Treasury General's account like what it sounds like. It's the it's the checking account of the U.S. government. The U.S. government's checking account sometimes needs to be refilled. How do they refill their checking account? How do they refill their bucket of cash? Well, they sell bonds, which is a way of borrowing money from the market. And so when the Treasury does that, what Arthur is claiming is they're draining liquidity out of the system, because a lot of the capital that is in Bitcoin, that is in assets, that is floating around in the economy, then goes to finance the government by buying bonds. Does that make sense? And so every so often, the United States government needs to refill their checking account. And he ends his tweet by saying, once that's done, we can continue to go higher. What does he mean by that? He means we're going to continue to go higher because once the Treasury has their checking account full, they go and spend that money into the real economy. One of the biggest spenders in the economy is the US government itself. And that capital finds its way into Bitcoin, into real estate, into the stock market, into gold, into the economy. And so the Treasury general account is being refilled. That will suck liquidity out of the system. And I think why this excites me so much is Bitcoin continues to be the best expression of fiat liquidity, the best pulse, the best index, the best heartbeat as to how healthy the system is, where the liquidity is, all the way to the Treasury literally refilling its checking account, its money bucket. Just so you guys know, I think that there are serious liquidity issues within the market. We are living in two economies, as I've been saying on this show. There is the ultra wealthy, and then there is everybody else. There are scarce desirable asset holders, and then there is everybody else. And we'll get into that in detail later in the episode. But the everybody else continues to struggle. The Treasury is draining liquidity right now. And I think Bitcoin is reacting to that. And as a Bitcoin holder, that's what you want. You do not want Bitcoin to be like the S&P 500, to be collecting a bunch of passive flows that backs the Treasury market with its bullshit 10% up every single year. That's basically more or less reflecting the increase in M2 money supply. You want Bitcoin to be the escape valve, the exit door, the pure reflection of the devil in the mirror.
Now, I quite like that last quote there. You don't want this to be reflecting, the average stock market movements. You want this to be the opposite. It's meant to be the escape. And so I think that's pretty on point there. Yeah, like are people gambling? Are people longing and shorting and doing dumb things and stupid games, super prizes? Absolutely. Sailor quote here. Short sellers don't understand the use case of digital credit built on top of digital capital because they have never seen it before in the history of capital markets. This was just a couple of days ago when he was on CNBC. Now, in terms of the geopolitical side of things, that could be also potentially spooking markets. There's been a lot of, we'll say, rumblings in and around war. And we see here over at Bitcoin News, Bitcoin down over 4,000 on the day. This was earlier, on the day that Pete Hegseth summons hundreds of generals and admirals for an urgent meeting. People are very concerned. They have no idea what it means. One source says, all of it is weird. Is the newly named renamed Department of War planning for war? And just a couple of, when was this, 2 days ago, we have Donald Trump, and he's saying, after getting to know fully understand the Ukraine-Russia military and economic situation, after seeing the economic trouble it is causing Russia, I think Ukraine, with the support of the European Union, is in a position to fight and win all of Ukraine back from its original form. With time, patience, and financial support of Europe, and in particular NATO, the original borders from where the war started is very much an option. Why not? Russia has been fighting aimlessly for 3.5 years, a war that should have taken a real military power less than a week to win. This is not distinguishing Russia. In fact, it is very much making them look like a paper tiger when the people living in Moscow and all the great cities, towns, and districts all throughout Russia find out what is really going on with this war. The fact that it's almost impossible for them to get gasoline through the long lines that are being formed, and all the other things that are taking place in their war economy, where most of their money is being spent on fighting Ukraine, which has great spirit and only getting better. Ukraine would be able to take back their country in its original form, and who knows, maybe even go further than that. Putin and Russia are in big economic trouble, and this is the time for Ukraine to act. In any event, I wish both countries well. We will continue to supply weapons to NATO for NATO to do what they want with them. Good luck to all. If that doesn't say hooray war, I don't know what does. But there's also some potential shift in and around this market. So like those are examples of geopolitical spooks that could be impacting price right now. However, it's important to note, and insofar as Bitcoin's price, historically, September has always been the worst month. Average monthly performance of Bitcoin seasonality. Average performance of Bitcoin across all years is down almost 4.75%. That's the average. Every other month is green on average. September always sucks. October, sometimes affectionately referred to as Uptober. So we may be on the cusp of Uptober. Shall we see? I don't know. But it's also worth noting, just for those of you into technical analysis, there's an indicator called Relative Strength Index. Here's Joe Carlasare just earlier today saying the last time the 12-hour chart of the RSI on Bitcoin was this low was the April bottom. So when that is low and it's hitting in and around this range here, the very doldrums down at the bottom here, it typically indicates that the price may be close to bottoming out. So this may be kind of like our kind of slap in the face before a bit of a rally. So we shall see. We still have groups like Standard Charter saying, hey, we're still in for 200K. I know this article is earlier, but they've reaffirmed this multiple times. But if you want true signal, true price signal, the best, our good friend Walker America from the Bitcoin podcast, very important. When he speaks, you listen. On January 1st, 2026, Bitcoin will be $221,696. I refuse to elaborate further. I think he's going to be exactly right to the dollar.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think there's a very, very reasonable chance, and I think it's a wonderful little prediction.